Welcome, everybody, to our special lecture today. We're very pleased to have with us Tom Boehllstorff, also known as Tom Bukowski. Tom is a well-known anthropologist royal of the Second Life. He's a professor at UC Irvine, and he's been working on anthropology of digital environments and digital commons, including this one. To the left, to his left, there is a copy of his famous Second Life book. You can just take a copy yourself. Let me just give you a few instructions. As you probably know, you should keep your mics muted. Tom will talk, and everybody else can chat in open text or ask questions in open text, just like this. So without further ado, I'll just yield to Tom.
Got it. Thank you so much. And just let me know if my sound isn't good, but I tried it before and it seems like it's working well. So thank you everyone so much for coming. And I really appreciate it. And thank you so much to all of the Scientia folks, to George and Shiloh, and to everyone for making this possible. I am so thankful. As many of you know, I am a long-standing and ongoing Second Life person. So anyway, this is a wonderful opportunity. And so as some of you might know, in addition to the research that I do in virtual worlds and Second Life, for the last 10 years, I've been doing research about video game history, particularly this Intellivision video game system. And as I'll say in a moment, I published a book about that recently with my colleague that you can actually get for free. We'll give you that information in a moment. And that book is more than 400 pages long, but my colleague and I, Braxton, who can't be here today, he sends his regards, have so much material. We basically have a second book worth of material. We've already started working on 3 different articles. This is one of them. This article is under review right now, which is something that makes me very excited to be presenting, because if you have questions or insights, I can actually incorporate them, Braxton and I, as we revise this article. So we're really excited about that. And this is a really important piece of technology and video game history that has almost been forgotten, and that we are trying to, talk about it and what its implications are. So because it's about interactive TV, instead of just showing screenshots, it's so nice to actually see what I'm talking about, the video. And so I have made short video clips. There are 8 of them, I think, that are 30 to 60 seconds long. And thanks to George and everyone, we're going to try and show those. I'll let George know. So here we go. And I won't be able to probably keep track of questions in the chat while I'm talking, but please feel free to put anything in the chat as it pops into your head, and we can, scroll back afterwards. So pretend that it's 1978, almost 50 years ago, which is amazing to say. And you live in LA, Los Angeles, California. And back then, the top-rated morning program was called AM Los Angeles. So one day you tune in, and Sarah Purcell, who's there on the left, and Regis Philbin, who's a very famous TV host who passed away, are talking about a game they're going to premiere for the first time on this morning television show. And they hint at some technical difficulties. Sarah says they've been working on it for a couple of days. We're trying to get it to work. They sort of try to demonstrate it and see if they can get this thing to go, where someone is going to say POW and control a video game over the telephone. So George, let's try to run this first clip and see the first ever TV POW that ever happened.
It's rubbing off.
Cut this thing. Now I give this shot over here.
Yeah.
I press this twice. And now I go to my phones. You'd like to go to line 6, is that it? To Orange County. Good morning, Orange County. You're on TV POW.
Good morning.
Hey.
How are you?
Fine.
You know how to play this game, right?
Yes, hope it works.
Watch the angle of the gun, and then say POW when you want to fire off a bullet.
Okay.
Did you notice how the angle of the trajectory changes?
Yes.
Trajectory.
Did you notice that? No, really, because it does change. When you hit something, then it does change, and you have to allow for that.
Now remember, you have no lines. All you can say is "pow," because if you say anything else, you'll activate that gun.
Okay?
Okay.
All right.
I know that.
All right.
Okay,
here we go.
don't say anything
They're
else but
holding
pow.
up little cards
Here
saying...
we go, darling. Good luck.
Here we go.
Pow. Pow. Pow.
It works.
Pow.
It works.
Pow.
I don't believe it.
Pow.
Oh.
Pow.
Oh, 5 seconds.
Pow.
4,
Pow.
3,
Pow.
2, 1.
Pow.
That's it. I'm sorry. She
Lady,
didn't get any.
you were absolutely terrible at
I
that.
know.
Who are you? Who
Don't
are
make
you?
her say her name now.
No, maybe you're right. But you got nothing. I mean, you weren't even close.
Yes, but you know what? If she got...
So what I'm going to do today is talk about this fascinating technology where you could pick up a telephone and say "pow" and control a video game in a TV studio, right? So you didn't even have to have the video game in your home. All you needed was an old phone, and you would call in and say "pow, pow, pow," and you could control a video game. And so what I'm going to do is the three key things I'm going to talk about is how this appeared in this certain moment when television and video games were really transforming in the late 1970s. The second thing is, why do this technology at all when you could have a technician behind a curtain sort of listening, right? For me to say "pow" and just like push a button, right? Why bother? And then a third thing is how this transformed game design. And as I'll mention, there are some interesting origins of casual gaming, of esports. A lot of things that are really big right now were shaped by TV POW, right? It pioneered some of these things. So as I mentioned, this is based on research that I did for my book in television, which came out last November. And it is a free book from MIT Press as a PDF. You can purchase it as a paperback book. It looks very nice. But if you go to their website, and we'll give you that information, you can actually download it for free if you're interested in this. But TV POW was only mentioned very briefly in the book. Like I said, this is a chance for me to be, and my colleague, to work on something that we couldn't fit into the book. Even though it's really big, you can't fit everything in. And this isn't just about in television, which was another reason that it didn't quite fit. So what was going on back at this time in the late 1970s? I was born in 1969, right? I was a kid. And so, but, you know, some of you young ones, you know, obviously may not know, arcades were becoming a cultural phenomenon, right? Pac-Man, Space Invaders, all that stuff was taking off in malls, stores. But another thing that you had was the emergence of what's called second generation home video game systems. And these were the ones that pioneered cartridges, right? The older ones like Pong, you could only play Pong, right? You bought a Pong game, thing and took it home, you played Pong. But with the second generation, for the first time, you had cartridges. So 6 months after you bought the video game console, 1 year later, you could go to the store, there was no internet at the time, and buy new games. And this became obviously a way that the companies made most of their money, was by selling new games. So it's almost like they would talk about it like buying a stereo and then you could buy new records for it, right? The razor blade model. So that was happening as well. And the first of those video game systems is not so well known, the Fairchild Channel F, which was actually designed by Gary Lawson, one of the earliest Black video game designers. And then Atari, that many people know, came out in 1977, and television came out in 1980. It was test marketed in 1979. All of these required a television, right? TV was a big deal back then, but most households had only one. So if you were playing these video games, everyone at home, for the most part, would be watching it, right, in the living room. The percentage of households that had second TVs it went up, going into the 1980s, but it was still fairly low. So this system, TV POW, was developed by this guy, Marv Kempner, who passed away almost 20 years ago, who was a broadcasting executive and a big sort of pioneer in syndicating TV shows. And his background is interesting in both because there were ideas around interactive media that go back to like the 1940s in radio, and then went into TV, like dialing for dollars, where you would sort of call in and guess the price of something or do sort of little games like that. And so the first cartridges were, they started out fairly expensive. Oh, sorry, my voice is cutting out. I will try to talk slowly. So in 1977, Marv Kempner got approached with the idea for doing like a 30-minute game show that would use this TV POW technology that some engineers were developing. And that TV show actually was created. You can see there 3 still shots from it. It was called Say POW. And we may actually do a new article about that. Only one of the 13 episodes has been survived, but I found 2 more from someone that I'm getting ready to digitize, so we might have enough material. But there was actually a hilarious 30-minute game show that was done, but it only ran for about 3 months. So what happened for the most part was that TV POW, as you'll see from some other clips coming up, was done sort of as an insert in regular programming, almost like a commercial break, right? Often sort of children or youth-oriented programming, not always, but usually. So Kempner had this idea, let's see if we can get this to work. And he approached Atari, and Atari said, we're not that interested. But Fairchild agreed, and it might be a little hard for you to see on this screen here, but up above there is that Fairchild Channel F, the very first video game system that had cartridges. And it's sort of grainy, but if you look on the left, you can see that Kathy is holding one of those controllers, and Regis, his left hand is touching the console. It's a little hard to see because it's turned around and there's some flowers there, but that is a Fairchild Channel F system that is there in the studio. So it didn't start out with Intellivision. It started out with this Fairchild Channel F system, is sort of how it got started. And the way that it worked was that a TV station, and this was done by individual TV stations, would subscribe, and they would pay $2,500 to get the technology called the POW box, and $2,500 to get a game subscription. No, it was Fairchild Semiconductor. It was an early chip making company. So it was Fairchild Semiconductor. I don't think they had a relationship to the airlines, though that's a good question. I should look and see. But it was Fairchild Semiconductor. So you would pay $5,000 total. That POW box, someday I hope to report back to you with good news, but there are no known POW boxes that have survived. We've never touched one. It seems like they've all been trashed or they're in landfill somewhere. And in fact, yes, this is the only known image of a POW box, and it's from an ad that Kempner did, so it's very grainy. And I've had some experts look at it and try to figure out like what it was doing. So if anyone ever hears of one, let me know, because the TV stations threw them away back in the late 70s, early 80s. So there's no known one to exist. But there was a patent, so we know what it did. And the interesting thing is, and there's interviews with the engineers who did it, the patent wasn't for activation of voice, because you could actually just even clap your hands or make a loud noise. It wasn't really about voice. What it was for was muting what's known as side tone, which is really interesting when you think about interactivity. So these images are thanks to Deckel, a colleague of mine who is an amazing video game expert. So the way that old analog phones would work is that they were connected by a wire, and how it was called the main tone. And here you see an example of, the host saying keep going, and the person at home is saying POW, right, to make the TV POW work. These drawings are by Deckel. Now, old analog phones also did something known as side tone. Because if you pick up a phone and it's dead on your ear, you don't hear your own voice at all. People start talking really loud, right? Yes, POW was done as a brand thing. And even nowadays, like an iPhone does this. They do a digital version of what's called side tone. You hear a little of your own voice, and that keeps you from talking too loud. So it is fed back to your local earpiece. And this was done with analog, right, with wires, right, back in the day, that side tone. The problem was that that side tone, particularly from the host, could get back into the main tone, so that Regis Philbin or the MC might accidentally fire the video game. When they would say, "Go, you're doing great," if that side tone got back in, they would fire the video game, and the video game wouldn't work. So what the patent was for was to get rid of that side tone. It was a system for removing side tone from an analog telephone system. So this is around this, new emerging idea of interactivity, where you suddenly care about these things. You used to not care about them because you weren't controlling a video game. This is also the period when home video recording, VHS and Betamax is starting to happen. Cable TV is emerging. There's a lot of experimenting. Answering machines are coming into being. There's a lot of experimenting around telephones, but also television, and this was definitely sort of part of that. And so with this system that was set up, it started to take off. There was a national rollout that began in 1978, and there are debates about how many TV stations subscribed, but we think it's between 80 and 100. It also went international. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And it was put in sort of regular youth programming. And so what I want to do now is show two examples. One I think is from North Carolina and the other is from Ohio, just to show sort of what it looked like. So this is the first one of those. And it's just so much fun to see what it looked like. This is just a minute long.
Let's play together. Wow, TV. Wow.
I asked for a caller from Sullivan County, and I got a caller from Sullivan County. He's from right here in Kingsport. His name's John Goglick. And John, if you're ready to play TV Pal, well, I think we are here. You've got 30 seconds to play, John. Good luck and go. John Goglick. He's 8 years old in the 3rd grade at Kingsley Elementary School and got a little dog named Brownie. He says Brownie's a real pain in the neck. Well, anyhow, John's playing for a McDonald's Happy Meal and a TV Pal t-shirt and a pass to the Boehllstorff Family Amusement Center and a bag of Ward potato chips and some other goodies I'm going to throw in. He's got 4 hits, 6 hits, 10's all he needs, Windows prizes. Come on, John, 2 more and you got it made. Not quite going to get it, though. John, you only scored 9 hits. That's not quite good enough for all the prizes, but I do have consolation prizes for you. Stay on the phone. We'll be back in about 15 minutes.
Done. It usually wasn't corporate sponsors. Like it was like a local TV station might get the McDonald's down the street kind of thing. It was done very locally. It was always done very local. And that game that was played there, I'm going to talk about later. So just take a look at, remember that. And now I'll show we can do one more just to take a look at another example. This is a bowling one. This is from Ohio, I think. And you get to see the hair and the clothes from 1978, 1979. It's so awesome.
Hi, with your telephone number on it. And today's prize is a gift certificate that may be redeemed at any one of Record Theater's 7 locations throughout the area. So we're going to start off right this morning with Darlene Karks. Good morning, Darlene.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Down there in Canton?
Yes, I am.
All right. The sun out there right now?
No, it isn't.
Well, it's not going to be out again either. All right. You ready to play this morning, Darlene?
Go ahead, please.
Okay. Well, here you go. You'll have 2 frames. Get as many pins as you can.
Pow. Pow. Pow.
Okay.
Pow!
All right. 12 pins for you. That's not too bad a score. You stay on the line. Okay, Darlene?
Thank
You
you.
keep looking for the sun.
One thing to notice is you can see why the side tone was so important, because even though this is being done independently by TV stations across the country, there's some patterns. The host is always talking to the person calling in, and how's the weather? Is your dad there? Or, what's your favorite? So there was always some kind of talking and banter, and then encouragement as they're playing. So there was interactivity with the video game system, but there's also interactivity with a host. And this is common across TV POW. Every example we've ever been able to find, that host is a very important part of the interactive environment, right? It's bringing the home into the TV studio, so to speak, which is a very interesting pattern that would happen over and over again. So then what happened is, just about a year after this got started, TV POW, Fairchild went out of business. They were very upset. Marv Kempner was very upset. But they said, hey, there's this other company, Mattel Electronics, the toy company, that's making this system called Intellivision. Maybe see if they'll do it. Because if you remember, Atari already said no. And Mattel agreed, and their games were more complicated. That space game that you saw in the first example, that was actually Intellivision. The bowling one, you could tell it's simpler, that was Channel F. So Kempner switches his contract to Mattel. That's why I found out in some ways about TV POW, is because they sort of switched to Intellivision, that many TV stations would keep the old Channel F because maybe there was a game they liked, like the bowling game, and they would use them both. And once again, this is from a Los Angeles station, the screenshot. It's a little hard to see. I drew a yellow circle, but the host actually has two telephones, and one has like a white cap around the receiver that you put your ear in. And that is because they, during the show, go back and forth between Intellivision and Channel F games. So that blue thing on the left is hiding both an Intellivision and a Channel F. And he's actually got two telephones there based on which game they're going to play. It's a little hard to see, but when you see the video, it makes it really, really obvious. So once again, we're having technical difficulties. They often had technical difficulties with TV POW. They would have problems with it. There's some great examples of that. So why not just fake it? And actually, the very first time that Marv, no, they didn't track it because it wasn't, it was syndicated, it wasn't tracked. The first time that he demoed it, it wasn't working. And so he hid literally behind a curtain behind some TV executives, and they would say POW, and he pushed the buttons. And it's a little hard to see, but if you look closely on that image I have there, you can see this is a mock-up of an Intellivision hand controller, and there's two action buttons on each side, and you can see POW is written in, right? So it's showing that it's not voice sometimes. It's pushing a button, right? So why not just fake it the whole time, right? Is a really interesting question that we asked about in our interviews and all of our research. And you're right, Kat. So part of it is people liked this gimmick. They said it's a gimmick and it has appeal. This also was not that long after the famous quiz show scandals. If you've heard about those, right? There was a movie about it. People were very sensitive about faking things. And this voice activation had a lot of cultural cachet. It was a big deal. And even that very first LA with Regis Philbin one that I showed you, they delayed it for 3 days because they couldn't get it to work, but they wouldn't fake it. They wanted it to actually work. And it really shows you the power of voice and the power of technology at this point, that even though they had hiding behind the curtain and pushing buttons as a backup, they did not do that most of the time. It's quite clear that most of the time they actually were getting it to work. And so it was building on the popularity of audience participation shows, game shows like The Price is Right. So what happened during this time was the rise of a lot of game shows that had small prizes. So like if you remember the old Price is Right, like you'd be bidding on soup. And, and at the very end, you might get a new car, or there might be a bigger thing, but a lot of it was quite small. And a lot of game shows had quite small prizes, right? A gift thing to a spa, or, a Happy Meal. And so this was sort of playing along with that lighthearted tone, making television interactive, but also making it participatory in this way that sort of speaks to this emergence of new ideas around interactivity that were happening at the time. Now, at this time, video gaming was already getting very identified with men. Arcades were not seen as a place that was a good place for female women to go, especially younger women. I mean, of course, some did. But sort of the male dominance in the video game industry, sadly, was getting, set up or beginning at this time. We talk about this in our book quite a bit. But game shows, a lot of them were shifting towards female consumers and viewers. And these home video games, like in Television or Channel F, weren't in the arcade. They were bringing video games home into the domestic sphere that was stereotypically seen as an area that was safe for women, right? A safer space in that way, right? So now I have a clip for you to watch that is from that same initial showing of TV POW with Regis Philbin. This is a little bit later. And I hope you can hear Philbin's commentary and Purcell's reaction. This is just a minute long. So I won't talk so that you can listen into this, hear what he's saying, and then give me a 1 when you're done.
Good deal.
Oh, boy. Poor Bud. You ready?
Right.
You're all set.
All right.
You're on.
Pow! Pow! Pow!
10
Pow!
seconds.
Pow! Pow!
5 seconds.
Pow!
She got
3,
it.
2,
Pow! Pow!
that's it.
Well,
1
that's
out of
it.
8.
1 out of 8. Jeez, and that was the only one that a woman got. Not saying anything. Don't get crazy.
Well,
just saying that it might be a little difficult for women to play this game in the
they don't
morning.
hang around in bars like men do.
I know that. Well, let's go back. Who's the winner here? Line number 2. Thank you, incidentally, man, very much. Well, sir, looks like you're the winner.
Thank you.
Yeah, you
Really
got, I
surprised
believe, 3 hits there.
You got 3 hits and a makeover
Yeah.
at the Hair Grove in Northridge, sir.
Well, thank you. My wife will like that.
That's very nice
All right.
of you.
I think you'll enjoy it out there, too. It's a terrific salon in Northridge. Okay, hang on. We'll get you all set up. And that's it. That's the end of TV POW for today.
So I'm getting enough 1s here. I will comment. And yes, thanks for your chatting. Yeah. So Purcell pushes back on his mansplaining and sexism, criticizing gendered access to gaming leisure, right? We don't go to the bars, implying that morning TV might be a safer space. And it is sad, but also telling that one of the first broadcasts of gendered play, of video game play, was also one of the first examples of gendered harassment in gameplay. And from TV POW, there were a lot of female contestants and hosts, way more than you would have in the arcades. But even in this early moment, this kind of sexism didn't happen all the time. And so here's a really interesting counterexample that is later on in the Ohio TV POW that I was showing you just a little bit ago. It's just 40 seconds long, yeah. So watch that and give me a 1 when you're done.
Oh, all right. Well, I'll tell you, it's going to be a little bit snowy later on today, you know.
That's great.
Okay, you ready to play?
I sure am.
All right, you'll have 2 frames. Get as many pins as you can. So here you go, Lori. Anytime you are ready.
Okay. Pow!
Whoa!
Pow!
Holy cow!
Wow!
Fantastic. You stay on the line now, okay, Lori?
Thanks.
There are scores so far. Lori is leading with 2 strikes. You're going to have to get at least 2 strikes to tie that score if you should like to win the game this morning. James White and Willowick. James?
I'm here.
Hi, Jim.
So there you see an example where the host is supportive. You know, he says, "Holy cow," and the audience
all right. Well, I'll
applauds
tell you, it's gonna be
because
a little
the
bit
player
snowy
gets
later on today,
two
you know.
strikes in a row. And if you saw at the very end of the clip, they're having 4 people are calling in from home to compete against each other, and 3 out of the 4 are women. Once again, showing that there's a kind of potential gendered access to video gaming, a struggle, frankly, over that is happening, which is a really interesting, piece of this history. That's true. I mean, it's true. Like it's a very short clip, and this is all that there is from that interaction. So yeah, I'm not saying that there was no sexism involved here as well. But that it was complicated, and even with that first example, there was already women pushing back and claiming space, right? Claiming that they should have access to these spaces. So it's interesting how this gender dynamic is emerging as well. So I just have 8 slides left, and so what I'll do in this last section is talk about how these games were done. The Channel F games, the early ones weren't really modified, but in television, you can read my book if you're curious, was really complicated for its time. You can see there the hand controller, and you would slide these overlays to control a particular game. You can see there one for Sea Battle and for baseball. The whole idea is it would make television intelligent. So it had a 12-button keypad, 4 action buttons, and a disc with 16 directions of control. And some television games could take an hour and a half or longer to play. Contract with Mattel was to simplify games, because for TV POW, you couldn't have all these complicated buttons. You were just saying POW. And there's actually a mock-up of a controller for POW, the overlay. Look how simple it is at the bottom right. And these games, because they were in between regular programming, we watched some clips, they were usually 30 seconds long, very fast. And so this is an early example, maybe the first ever example of what is now known as demaking, where for casual gaming or for retro kinds of things, you simplify a game, you demake a game. And this is just fun. It's not that crucial, but I just put up an image of a demake of a Mario game. Yes, it's called demaking. Here's a clip if you want to just see a few seconds of like the original version and the demake. It's not crucial. It's just fun to see, what they would do. And the clip shows sort of the original Mario version, which I think is on PlayStation. I forget what it's on, or on Switch. And then a demake that's made to look like an old school arcade game version. And this is done for fun, but actually a lot of mobile gaming involves a kind of demaking, right? Because you're simplifying things for a mobile phone where you don't have as many buttons, the gameplay isn't as long, there's distractions, those kinds of things.
Rated game of all time. From the title screen to the gameplay and world, developer Simple Team reimagines the Cap and Cascade Kingdom sections of the game as a 16-bit 2D Mario game. Each beat has been perfectly translated to this 2D style.
So it's interesting because this may be the first example of this kind of demaking that ever happened, was in the late 70s for these Intellivision games. So just to give you an example, that first clip we saw of the shooting game is actually a game called Space Battle. And the original version for Intellivision is incredibly complicated for a 50-year-old game that has only 4K. Look at how complicated the overlay is that's over the keypad. Basically, it has a strategy map where you send out teams of fighters to go after these enemy fleets. And then it has a close-up where you are moving around shooting the enemy fighters, and they are actually trying to shoot your cursor. They're trying to blow you up. They shoot at your cursor. And I just have 2 more little clips. And the first one I'll put right now is just 20 seconds of Space Battle on an Intellivision. So you don't even need to have the sound on for it if you don't want. It just shows you what this looks like on an Intellivision, where you're sending out these fleets of 3 ships to go after the enemy groups. And then when you get to them, you zoom in and you're moving your cursor around, shooting at them. And if they hit your cursor with their bullets, they blow you up. This was designed by Hal Finney at Caltech at APH, and Hal Finney was the recipient of the first Bitcoin transaction. He's actually a very important figure in the history of technology, but he got his start, one of his starts, doing Intellivision games before he was involved with crypto. And so, as you saw from the that earlier clip that I showed you, the version that was made for TV POW gets rid of that first level entirely, where you are trying to find those enemy, ships. And also, when you're close up, the cursor doesn't move; it stays still. And so you're just sort of shooting in a much more simplified manner. Here, this is the last clip. This is just, you don't even need the sound on if you don't want, but this is one of the TV POW from LA doing this space battle, and you can see how simple that it should be. For Cat, the reason for that is Intellivision only had 16 colors, and it's a long story, but they had way too many shades of green. It drove the programmers crazy. And so they ended up doing green for the main one. But anyway, if you want to, you can look at this final clip that I just put, and it shows you that sort of demade, simplified version of TV POW that was done.
Hi again, boys and girls. I'm Ralph. This is the POW Machine. We'll get back to the cartoons in just a little bit. Tom and Jerry are coming up again, but right now it's time for a game of space battle with 10-year-old Kim Rodovich from Irvine. Kim, are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, we're ready over here. You got anybody rooting in the house?
Yeah.
Who's over there?
My sister and my mother.
Sister and Mom. What's your sister's name?
Chris.
Okay, Chris. Mom, can we hear a little bit? Oh, it's pretty soft. We're going to have to hear something out of Mom. Okay, well, we're rooting for you over here, and don't worry about a thing, because you're going to a POW toy box just for playing. Good luck. Keep your POWs nice and loud. Got some real excited rooters over here waiting to root for you, so good luck again. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, then good luck, and let's POW! Couple of brief pauses there, but some good shooting anyway, because you knocked down 5 spaceships and a trip to the POW 2 toy box. So congratulations and thanks for playing, Kim, okay?
Goodbye.
Stay on the phone so we can find out what you want and you be the prize.
The video game industry crashed before this could be done, but we know from internal documents that there were a bunch of other games that they were trying to simplify. Like Astro Smash was a very popular game that for the Intellivision, and they were going to try to make a version for POW, and here you can see POW for Astro Smash. This is a internal document that we got from the programmers, where they were trying to figure out what they would change. They would get rid of these comets, do these kinds of things. Where the red arrow is, it shows each press of an action key would fire 3 shots. In case it doesn't work, that you can have someone behind the curtain press a button. But this is really interesting because home video games created these new opportunities where you could have games that could go on for hours. It could be complicated. You weren't trying to get more quarters, right? You weren't trying to get more quarters like in the arcade. So gameplay could go on much longer when people are buying a cartridge. And there's a way that TV POW sort of took things back to the arcade design almost, right? Simplified things because of this need to control it only through a telephone. Okay, so to wrap up, so TV POW didn't last. There was a lot of conflict that Mattel wasn't providing enough new TV POW games. They weren't getting much money out of it. They had other things to be doing. By 1983, subscriptions were stalling. TV stations were losing interest. And Mattel Electronics was dissolved during the big video game crash of 1984, and Television was sold off to a little company that just sold some existing games for a few years. And so the whole thing fell apart. But we do have evidence, and I didn't have time to show it now. You could Google around and see, but TV POW actually continued outside the US longer than in the US. It continued in Brazil until at least 1986. And it may have been in Italy and Australia up until almost 1990, which once again gives me hope that maybe someday someone around the world will find one of those POW boxes, because I would love to get my hands on one of those just to sort of see how it worked. So final slide, TV POW has largely been forgotten, but it's a really important piece of our video game history from 50 years ago. It was an early and very innovative experiment in interactivity, online gaming, we could call it, right? An early example of online gaming, maybe the earliest. It could be the earliest example of what we now call esports. It's darn close. It's an early pioneer. It was changing the home into a public sphere of spectatorship. It was establishing, but also contesting gender norms around men and women in video gaming. It was pioneering what we now call demaking, the simplifying of video games. This is possibly the first example of demaking that we can find. So there's a lot of interesting implications and lessons for us now as we deal with a lot of these issues. And as you know, so many issues around video games apply to virtual worlds like Second Life. Because even though Second Life isn't a video game, it has games in it, the infrastructure, the platform shares many features with games. And so what we learn about video games and gaming is absolutely relevant, not only for video games, but thinking about virtual worlds more generally. So thanks so much. That QR code takes you to the free copy of the Intellivision book, and I'll put it, here it is in the chat as well. Thank you so much, and we can have a few minutes for questions, and I'll scroll through them, but thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you, Tom. It was great having you here, and please ask questions in text, and he will answer them, and make sure it's question marked like this.
Yay, Cat, I love video games too. And I grew up playing in television, so. Ilsa, George should be able to get it to work, but you can get my Second Life book as a free PDF as well. There should be a link there. Yeah, Curious says just take a copy. Nick, I would love to know. The Richard Olney, who designed it, has passed away. We have some interviews with him before he passed away. I don't know immediately off the top of my head, but it's a great question. What someone could do, if I had the time, thank you for making me think of this, is we could try to Google the patent and see if anyone else applied for the patent to use the patent perhaps. So I don't know, because the thing is, by the late 1980s, early 1990s, telephone technology was changing. It was getting digitized and fiber optic, and then smartphones, and so it wouldn't have been relevant necessarily, because side tone on an iPhone doesn't work. It's the same effect, but obviously under the hood it's very different than what was being done with old telephones. So it was all being done through wires. Yeah, voice control is a thing in video games, still in various contexts, or talking to your Siri or whatever, that kind of things. Yeah, this was an early example of voice control. But Richard Olney, the engineer, said you could bang two kitchen pots together. It was just looking for a change in the amplitude, the circuitry. It wasn't actually looking for a human voice. That's why they picked POW as a word, because they wanted a loud sound. One problem they did have with TV POW was they started to get kids coming in and saying cuss words on live TV or whatever. So they did have some problems with that. That was one factor in it becoming unpopular, was prank callers. We know of at least a few cases where that happened. But there's a lot that's still not known about TV POW. We don't even know, like I said, exactly how many stations carried it. Yeah, we were being integrated with technology. I mean, the television was a one-way technology. It was like watching a movie. And to make it two-way was a big deal. Like people, even the advertising for TV POW talked about like you are talking back to the TV. That was a big deal. In 1978, 1979. And that you were controlling a video game, not just talking to a person, even though that was part of it. Yeah, there was a lot of change before the smartphone, and this era, the VHS was a big deal. You know, like videotape. The idea of recording a TV show and then being able to skip over the commercials was huge. I mean, that was a big deal in the late '70s. Was the emergence of VHS, and cable was happening around the same time. Pat, did you have? Oh yes, and Shiloh, you know, there were older people doing POW. It is very interesting. Some of it was done for like cartoons, but it was also done for $6 Million Man. And for Regis Philbin, that was a morning TV show that was sort of oriented towards housewives, basically, or people at home in the morning. It was not a kid's show. And there were definitely adults who were playing. And the prize, one of the prizes, I don't know if you heard that clip of, you know, when he was being so sexist, the prize was like a spa visit, like to get your fingernails done. Like that's not a Happy Meal or a kid's thing. So there were adults definitely doing TV POW. It really depended on what the individual TV station was doing. Marv Kempner didn't care, like him creating it. But individual TV stations, some of them, like in North Carolina, there was a children's show called Barney's Army, and it did TV POW big time for years. But there were ones that were for adults. What the killer was, what killed TV POW? I mean, part of it was that Mattel wouldn't make any new games, and they were getting, they were aging, and then the whole video game industry shut down basically in 1984. The whole industry collapsed in 1984. Atari, Coleco, Mattel, everyone went out of business. There were no video games on the market for almost 18 months. And then when the third generation happened, it was mostly coming in from Japan. It was the rise of Sega and Nintendo. The earlier second generation is almost all US based. The following generation was almost all Japan after the crash. That definitely affected it as well. Let me see if I missed any other questions. Sulla?
Yeah, I think you got him.
Yeah, one thing we don't know, like even a basic thing that we don't know is when it went to Brazil and Italy, were they just doing it behind a curtain, or did they get a TV POW box? There's a lot that's not known. Before the internet, you have to look at trade industry magazines and things like that, and it's remarkably hard to find, especially syndication, because often a TV station would show a syndicated thing and then they'd have to give it back. They weren't able to keep it. It's almost like renting it. So the TV station might not have records. Yeah, I don't know why it survived in Brazil. And I didn't show it today, but there's some great clips, hilarious clips of Brazil TV POW. If you just Google them, you can find them, or I can give you the links later. We don't know. I do not know why it lasted longer, or even what TV stations were doing that. Someday someone will do that research. I would love to know. But it was definitely there longer than in the US. We do know Marv Kempner tried to get Nintendo interested after the crash, but he, in his autobiography, he says they were not interested. They said no. But he did try to restart it with Nintendo in the later, after the crash. But no one bit. No one was interested, so it fizzled out. It was really only around for about 3 or 4 years as a big thing. That's one reason it's been so forgotten. And it was fairly short period, except for that later stuff in Brazil and Italy and everywhere. And I know we're at noon, so we can wrap up here in a minute or two. But please feel free to IM me, and it was depend on the main product. There's my email, or to IM me, and I will get curious. I can give you you can pull the slides out of the projector actually, or I could do a PDF of slides. So and when this article, which has more details, comes out, I will, let people know that it's being reviewed. So who knows how long it will take, but I purpose follows the full article, which has, citations and more details about all this stuff. So yes, if any of you ever hear about a POW box, let me know.
Well, thank you, Tom. This was great. Feel free to come and sell more books anytime. And let's thank our speaker again.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was really fun. Thank you. And like I said, if you I'll give you a free copy of my physical book to anyone who finds one of these old POW boxes. There's got to be one in a warehouse somewhere. And I have engineer retro friends who could take it apart, and George could probably do that and figure out. I would love to have someone do a teardown. There's got to be one in one of these TV stations in their basement somewhere. But that picture I showed you, we don't even have a good picture of one. That picture is very grainy. Sorry. Oh, thanks, Ilsa. Yeah, it did. We know it went to Australia. I don't know how many stations, but it did. Yeah, that picture is from a brochure that was used to try and get TV stations interested in it. So it's really grainy. Like you can't see what the knobs say. Do they say volume? Do they? Yeah. No, I'll keep Googling around. I just haven't. Braxton and I have searched for years, and so we still can't find one. People just didn't keep that kind of thing, in the TV stations. They would get new equipment and throw out the old equipment. It just wasn't a habit to keep old equipment back in the day. But if I could find it, I could donate it to the Computer History Museum up in San Jose. Or I know, Dolly, that's what I would hope. Maybe some engineer, took it home for his kids to play with, or some garage sale. Exactly. But it's been almost 50 years now. So, but who knows? Who knows? It would be fun to tear one apart just to see how the circuitry actually, worked and what it did. There's more. YouTube has a bunch of TV POW videos, and I have the Say POW one that I want to put up online eventually. But yes, thank you, Shiloh. Thank you, George. Thanks, everyone. Okay, I'm going to head out myself so people don't feel obligated to hang out here as well. But I really appreciate this, and George, just thank you so much and Shiloh for making this happen. We will do this again at some point, and I'm easy to find. So, and I'll get those slides out. So thanks, everyone.